I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a seven-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. Thanks so much for tuning into the Growth and Grit podcast. Today's guest is an incredible leader in the world of finance, business strategy, wealth management. Today joining us is Jenn Barry, who is the Chief Administrative Officer of Aaron Wealth Advisors, and she works directly with leadership, oversees operations, but beyond finance. Jenn is a strong advocate for leadership and wellness, empowering women in business, and her journey from working at a family restaurant business to becoming an executive in wealth management is packed with lessons of resilience, relationships, and redefining success. So I'm so excited for her to be on the podcast and just share all of her wisdom. So thank you so much, Jenn, for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm really so happy to be here, and I really appreciate you reaching out to invite me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
First of all, I know you're kind of like the queen of adversity, right? Like you've used adversity as like a catalyst for growth. And I think some people are scared of that. They're scared of, challenges and issues. Can you maybe share a story or talk a little bit about how adversity has helped you in life and how it's made you better in like personal circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have so many examples. I don't know which one to choose, but I mean, I think I'll start with, you mentioned I had this kind of humble beginning coming from the restaurant business. I mean, I was born into a family of restaurant entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned restaurants. My parents worked them. And, from a really young age, I saw them struggle. I mean, it was always, focused on me making ends meet. They worked so hard for the money they earned. And frankly, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, they threw me in the restaurant, in the mornings on like Saturday and Sunday morning when I'm not in school to help my mom in the back room. So I think my early beginnings of really from a very young age understanding like I had to work for what I wanted. Nothing was going to be handed to me. I was not born into a wealthy family. Um, and I looked at my parents' life and I love my parents and they did such a great job raising my sister and I. But I know deep down thought, I don't want that to be my life. I want something different than that. So I was a smart student and I worked really hard in school. I went to University of Michigan undergrad and, I've never returned back home to suburban Michigan. I not that I don't love my family, but I just knew I did not want to go back there. I wanted a different life and I worked hard to get to where I am. And I do think as one example that kind of humble beginning and just understanding the realities of life from early on really framed my mindset. I mean, I am just the most stubborn person ever. I just don't give up. Um, and, I've learned so many lessons and I mean, resilience is definitely one of the things that I think I'm well schooled in and I like to talk about a lot because it really is the way that you grow. So
So, what advice would you have for people that are just starting out or new to self-sufficiency or, self-reliance in business in general? Because a lot of the people that listen to this are young entrepreneurs that are just stepping into a career where there's a lot of unexpected challenges. And
yeah,
how you handle an unexpected challenge, I think, is a high determining factor of if you succeed or fail, right?
that's right.
So,
That's right.
so what should be their perspective on that?
Yeah. So it took me a long time to figure this out, but I finally have realized that like the most important thing to live by is this idea of am I happy? And I know it sounds very simplistic, but it really does drive what I do each day. It's driven, my career changes over time. And it seemed like in the beginning of my career, I didn't have the license or I didn't deserve necessarily to be happy. I thought you just had to, get to work and just suffer and work long hours. And that's just what it took in life to get to where you want to go. So I think one of the things I would love to, talk about is even early on, when you're a young entrepreneur, um, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have your health, you'll have nothing, right? So people talk a lot of nowadays about wellness and balance. I think work-life balance is a misnomer. I don't think there is balance. I think there is just smart sort of triage of like what comes after you and what's most important in that given time. And you can't have everything. You can have everything, but not at the same time, right? So I'd focus on, keeping yourself healthy and strong. So that means eating, that means sleeping, that means working out if you think you need, mental um professionals to help you. None of those things um should be looked at as superfluous. I mean, those are basic things you need to build the right foundation. So I wish someone would have told me that a long time ago. Like, don't lose your health, make time for the things that keep you healthy, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to handle everything that's going to come at you if you're not in a strong position. The other thing I would focus on is you can't be good at everything. So really sit down and be intellectually honest with yourself about what you are good at and what you're not. And I do think delegation, even at that young, stage where you're just starting out. I mean, yes, a lot of people do it on their own, but more often than not, you do have, a few people you're working with to build something. Delegation is not a sign of weakness. It's actually one of the most undervalued leadership skills out there, because when you delegate to people, number one, you're taking something off your plate that maybe isn't the highest and best use of your time. And that's what you should be focused on, the highest and best use of your time. And then as you delegate to others, you have the ability to, you know, give them an opportunity to shine, give them an opportunity to learn. So I would say that's an important thing as well is
I want to pause you for a second because with
yeah,
delegation, I've seen people do this the right way and I've seen people delegate the wrong way. And I
yeah,
think you probably know what I'm talking about, right? So can you expand on like the proper way to delegate something? Because sometimes someone's like, okay, I'm bad at administrative work, for example. I'm going to hire this administrator and just dump all this work on them with like little to no training. Or,
yeah,
they do something like that, and then it crashes and burns, and they're like, "See, never should have delegated that. That was a bad
yeah,
choice, and I just need to do everything myself." And they kind of
totally.
retreat from that because of that experience. So, based on
Yeah,
what you know and what you've seen, like, what is the proper way to get
yeah.
something off of your plate and put it on someone else's?
So obviously I'm not going to take something off my plate that can only be handled by me, right? There's just certain things that it's just the core of your job. But there's also the idea that you know, you you need to identify, at least in my role, right? I try to identify the people at the firm, not just necessarily like the people on my team, but people at the firm that I see have skills that maybe are untapped. Like, here's a great example. Like, in my role, I have a lot of hats, and one of the things I run is our marketing and our branding, right? Which is not something I have a lot of experience in. So we had some recent changes at the firm, and one of the people on the team had this background in creative, had gotten degrees, a master's degree even in creative. I forget exactly what hers, but she has a lot of marketing experience. So, in addition to doing her everyday job, she and I are now collaborating on marketing because she has some insights that I just, that's not my strong suit. I'm going to admit it. I'm not a creative marketing type. So, obviously, you're not gonna just delegate anything, right? I mean, you have to do it smart. You have to identify the people and, again, you have to transition in the right way. You can't set people up to fail. So even if it takes like somebody shadowing you for the first few times you do something and showing them exactly what it is, and then checking in with that often. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get something off my plate, which makes me more productive. I'm trying to I'm trying to entrust somebody with a process or a workflow or a project that I feel pretty confident they can handle based on the fact that I know them as well as I do, and we've prepped for this, and then there's regular check-ins. I mean, all this comes down to communication, right? So, for me, it's communicating, what I've been doing, how I've been doing it, letting them, feel comfortable with it, ask questions, but then also leaving the door open to like, "I've been doing it this way, but listen, I'm happy to hear if you have a better way to do it. Because at the end of the day, I think that it starts to empower people. It gives them confidence. At the end of the day, that's what people need to feel like, they're in a safe space, right? They're in a place where there's psychological safety, they can make mistakes, they can ask questions. You're giving them work to do, they complete it, you're giving them good or bad feedback, and all of this is helping them develop, in the way that, you would want them to develop. So, I don't just go around handing out tasks willy-nilly to people. I'm very specific about it. I put a lot of thought into it. And it's not just on my immediate team, it really is trying to look across the firm and figure out, what else are people good at? Like, let's try to find, other things that we can get people involved with, that may not just be the investments that they're working on or just the family wealth advisor, working with the clients every day. Like, there's other things that they can contribute. So I don't know if I answered your question, but like, that's how I think about delegation.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think that's key because you don't want to just throw someone into something and cross your fingers and hope that they're good at it. You want to first vet the person. Like, what untapped skill do they have that maybe I can identify that they're already going to be good at, like the gal who knew marketing, right? And then you're like, okay, now I have this idea of how to, and they probably know more than even you do about the subject, and they can be like, oh yeah, I can take this idea and run with it or whatever. And then so much
100%.
positive comes from that too, because then there's more creativity and two heads are always better than one in departments like that, like with branding and different things.
And I think one thing you have to have is you have to be the kind of leader that um is okay admitting you don't know. Is okay saying like this is how we've done it, but doesn't necessarily need to be the way we do it. Um I'm not say I make every decision by committee. By no means is that the case, but I do think, especially I look at, our firm, there's a pretty wide range in terms of ages, right? I mean, there's definitely people that are in their, late 20s, 30s till, older. And so there's a continuum of experiences, a continuum of, thought and just where people come from. And I think that diversity of thought is just it's so important. But you got to be able to put your ego aside and realize like you don't have all the answers. And I for sure know that.
Yeah. Uh, I know you shared a story when we were at a women's conference together about a house fire that you had
Yeah.
and how
Oh
all the
yeah.
training, how the business training really came into play. Can you share that? Because it was just so
Yeah.
impactful for me to hear.
Yeah. This will go down as like one of the most impactful things that ever happened to me. But so I live in suburban Chicago. I've got 3 kids. I'm married, and we've lived in this house on the north side, in the suburbs for at the time last year, have been 12 years. And on a Monday night in August last year, there was a terrible storm, and my house was hit by lightning and started to burn. And we were in the home. Everyone got out. Firefighters came and they were putting out the fire, and the fire was put out well before the house burned down. So that's not, it could have been worse, but, I remember standing there across the street in my neighbor's yard watching this happen, and I knew in my mind everyone was watching me because, I am this alpha force. I have this amazing husband, he's a writer, he's a stay-at-home dad, but he's definitely much more chill and low key than I am and more calm than I am. So I knew everyone was sort of looking at me like, what's she gonna do? My kids are looking at me, and my husband seemed almost like catatonic, I'll be honest with you. So in that moment, it struck me that like everyone's watching me. I talk all the time about leading by example, right? We talk about that in the context of work, but it's really a life. It's a concept in life. And so in my mind in that moment, I said, I need to lead us out of this situation. And the truth is I was so calm in that moment, and it really occurred to me after that's because I'd been in so many crazy situations over my career. Now, no, never before have I experienced my house getting hit by lightning and burning down, but I worked at a Wall Street bank for 26 years. Everything was a crisis. Like this deal didn't sell. We didn't fit the schedule. The vote went down. We didn't get the revenues we thought. We didn't get this client we thought. Like everything was a crisis every single day. Nothing was ever, "Oh, this is not so important. Don't worry about that." Everything was the most important thing every day. So I feel like I've had all this business training, and it really is crisis management training is really what it boils down to. It's like, how do you keep it together under extreme pressure and make the right decisions and assure the people that you're leading that it's going to be okay? And that's what was happening that day in my house. So from that moment, I mean, I have had to continue my work as a C-suite executive while dealing with 3 teenagers, moving 4 times in 9 months. We just moved to our 2nd temporary house a week ago, and we'll be there until our house is rebuilt. So we're rebuilding our house. Um, and here's a great example. We talked about delegation a few minutes ago. This house fire has been really hard for me. I have had to sort of compartmentalize it because that's a really I don't know, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but even going in a house today, it's hard for me to look at it because it's just, it's down to the studs. Like it's not really the house that I remember buying back in 2014, right? And so I have my husband deal with it. He goes over there almost every day. If there's questions about anything, they sort of go to him first. And I get pulled over the wall like when needed, but I really do try to have him run point on this because I'm trying to do my job, deal with my kids, you know, do sleep, get my workouts, like have a life on top of that. And just it affects me mentally, honestly, so much that I've had to put up boundaries on it. So I guess the lesson here is the things you're doing at work, the things you're doing at home, the crises you're facing in both, they're not that different. They really are not. Like, the way you respond to situations, I mean, the most important advice I've ever received in my life is the idea that you cannot change things or people, only how you respond to them. And that has really been my kind of driving mantra most of my life in terms of how I wanna present myself, how I wanna represent myself as a mother, as a wife, as a triathlete, as a whatever, and then, of course, in business as a it matters so much. So, that story I mean, it's an ongoing story. This is still not we haven't gotten to the end yet, and, I do think it's made me much better at prioritizing, saying no to things. I've had to get much more exacting at work because I do there's other things that are that come into my weekly schedule with the house and other things that I have to be present for. But I would say I feel like I'm a stronger, better leader because this has happened. And instead of looking at it like it's such a tragedy and letting it, you know you know, put me in a corner and just have me cry for days on end, I've just decided that I can't change this. This is literally an act of God, is what a fire, when your house is hit by lightning, there's really nothing you could have done about it. But now it's how am I getting my family through this? How are we setting up, these like we've lived in 2 different houses, like, how are we setting that up? I wanna make my kids feel comfortable, I wanna make them feel like they have, a real home to come back to, and so that is been a challenge, but I definitely feel at the end of the day that I know I'm a capable person, and I know I can get us through this disaster and get us to the other side, and, we're all gonna be changed, and I think we're all gonna be different.
Yeah, that sounds like just I mean, overall kinda traumatic to me to even hear your house getting
Yeah.
struck by lightning and then having to do that. I'm sorry that that happened to you, and I think that,
Yeah.
um, you're right, like, it's just such a fluke, random thing, but what's really interesting out of, like, all these chaotic moments is that somehow it builds confidence, right? Like,
Yeah.
after you go through this, you're like, "What else you got?" You know what I mean? Like, seriously,
That's exactly
I
right.
get my house by with lightning, great. Okay, I can manage that. It's like, okay, what else is coming at me? Because 'Cause I'm sure that wasn't the only thing that happened. I'm sure there was, like, a series of other things that, all went wrong at the same moment and same time that, that's typically how it goes, and through all of those things, which are sometimes, like, the most chaotic and crazy moments of your life, you come
Yeah.
out the other side with so much more confidence in your ability to just handle anything. You're like,
Totally.
"Eh."
Yeah. There's always, I mean, I recently saw a study. It talked about like the number one determinant of children's confidence comes down to whether or not they had chores and responsibilities in their home, which of course no one likes to make their bed. No one likes to fill the dishwasher. No one, like, my kids complain about everything. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think it's that giving them a task, you overcome it, you prove yourself, like that repeatable process is what leads people to feel, it's like, why do people train for races? Well, you train because you're not gonna go out and just run a marathon, you're gonna
Right.
die, but you run a mile, then 2 miles, before you know it, you get up to 20 miles, and then before you know it, you're running a marathon, and that's all resistance, it's resilience, it's growth, it's all the same thing, and, I use working out, honestly, is like my medicine. I am obsessed with swimming, biking, running. I'm a proud triathlete. I have got, these 3 tries coming up this summer, and I know I'm a good athlete. I've been a great athlete since I was a little girl, right? And I push myself hard because I wanna prove to myself I can do it, you know? And then what happens is I do it, and it gives me confidence, and then I find that I can take the confidence from that, and you made this point earlier. If I can swim a mile without stopping, if I can bike 25 miles at 21 miles an hour, if I can whatever, then I know I can handle this. Like, it proves to you that you have the capability, even though it's not the same task. It's not even the same part of your life, but it really is all about the confidence. It doesn't matter if it's kids, love, work. I almost doesn't think it matters. It's all about how you approach it, and, what adversity is kind of helping you come to.
I think, yeah, and I want to expand on that a little bit because I do think it's important because you have, okay, so you run, you're a part of this amazing business and you lead these people and you speak at conferences and you do all this stuff. And then you also run these triathlons and do the whole thing.
No.
Do you think, and I know the answer to this, but I maybe expand on how to do this. Um, these personal goals that you have alongside your business goals, I think are so crucial to like your own life and just mental health and ability to accomplish things. What advice would you have for like the young entrepreneur that feels like they're immediately over their head and working 90 hours a week,
Yeah.
trying to keep their business up? How did you start this? Like, how did you start running a triathlon? Like, what was your
Yeah.
process and how did you get there? Because I think having something like this aside from just business is so crucial
So
to your
crucial.
life.
Okay. I've been on the other side. So I'll tell you my health story, because that's the other big
Yeah.
resilience story that I have in addition to the fire story is, I grew up, like I said, an athlete. I was always like a bigger, taller girl, never felt like I was um small and tiny, like, the point guard on my team or the setter on my team. But I was a great athlete. Okay. And then I went to college, and like everyone put on the freshman 15, the whole thing. And, my weight was always up and down. I got to Wall Street after I graduated from Michigan in 1994, and I went to the work for a company called Solomon Brothers, which is no longer in existence, but it became Solomon Barney, and now it's Citi. So it's Citigroup, the big global bank. And, I get there, and it's one of those lives where, you're not eating a lot of good food. You're going out after work a lot and drinking and partying, and, you're a young kid living in New York City. I mean, I don't need to like go into the detail, but over the years, my weight just kept creeping up, and I didn't and wasn't able to prioritize sleep or working out or eating right. I mean, I just lived this crazy sales and trading life where you got to work at, 6:30 in the morning, and you might be there till 6 o'clock at night. And as a junior person, you're stuck to the desk. And then I started having kids in '08, and, I had kids, put weight on. So long story short, it all came to a head in the summer of 19. I was at a weight that, like, in my life, I never thought I would be at, and I just did not feel good about how I felt and what I was doing, and I was sleeping 5 hours a night. I was using, like, Chardonnay as a coping mechanism, you know what I mean? So, I went to go see my doctor, and it was a regular, just, yearly well visit, and she looked me in the eye and she said, "I don't wanna frighten you, But if you make changes, you might not see your kids grow up. And so, I mean, there's probably nothing in my life that was so, um, I don't even know, like, true, ever. And that honestly changed the direction of my life because I decided at that point in time, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. It doesn't matter if you have all these letters after your name. It doesn't matter if you're dead at 55 of a heart attack because you didn't pay attention to your eating and your health and your sleep and all that. And so I just made that decision at that point in time, like, that's it, I'm done. And listen, I worked on a Wall Street trading desk. Like, you went out for drinks every night, you went to conferences, it was a crazy lifestyle and not one where you could really work out a lot, where you could really, control eating and drinking, and I just said, "That's it, I'm going to." So for the next year and a half, under a doctor's supervision, and this is not when GLPs existed, okay, this is back in the day, I lost 97 pounds, sheerly through eating. So don't ever think you can, out exercise a bad diet. It's all eating. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's 100% the eating, and then the exercise does other things for you. So then I started working out after I lost, I don't know, probably the first 50 pounds. I started working out, add that back to the mix, which I hadn't really done. And sometimes I'll be honest with you, this involved me getting up and working out at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning before I went to work. But I was just so focused on the idea that I wanted to be healthy so I could see my kids grow up. Like, that was my motivation. So what happened was is the conversation in my head switched from, "Oh, I gotta give up all this stuff because I need to lose weight and I'm missing on I'm missing my wine and I'm missing my chocolate," to focusing on, which I said in the beginning, what makes me happy? What makes me happy is waking up and feeling good, feeling like my stomach feels good, feeling like, my skin's clear, I have good energy. And if I eat well and I cut my drinking and I do the things that the doctor and I, arrived at, then I feel amazing and I want to keep doing that. So that then catalyzed me to say, okay, I'm being true to myself. I'm losing weight. I'm working out, but I'm still going to a job that frankly is killing me. I don't sleep. I never see my kids in the morning. Sometimes I don't see them, for days on end because I'm traveling or whatever. And so in the fall of 2020, I retired from City after 26 years. I walked out the door. I took a retirement package. I knew I wasn't gonna retire. I knew I had to work. I mean, I'm the sole breadwinner. I have 3 kids that I haven't put through college yet, and that's only gonna cost, like, $3 million according to, school costs nowadays. And so I just was determined, like, I wanna live a life where I have control, where I can sleep, I can set my own schedule, I can see my kids. I could the idea that I could drive my kids to school in the morning and then go to work, revolutionary, literally revolutionary, for me. So that is what I have done, and I have been amazingly focused on this for 7 years now. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, my weight goes up and down. Sometimes I'm thinner than I like to be, sometimes I'm heavier, but the constants are focusing on how I feel, what I'm eating, drinking, doing, how does that make me feel, and letting that be the guide that that compels me to get up and work out or to, take the time I need or to put PTO on the calendar. And, it's tough to say all this when I'm talking to entrepreneurs who are like they're a solopreneur, they're building a business. And so I know it's hard, for you to listen to this and be like, yeah, 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 that sounds great, but that's not going to work for me. But listen, even at a micro level of this one person, there are things you can do to help your mental and physical self. And I know there's this idea that, like, oh my God, if I work out, it's going to make me more tired. I can guarantee you it's not. It's going to give you more energy. If you eat better, you're going to have a stronger foundation. I'm not saying everyone needs to lose weight, but I mean, just being at a good weight, putting, good foods in your body, staying away from processed everything. these are things that you can do to make yourself stronger. And if you're building a, you get your hair on fire, going Mach 2 to build this business, I mean, you're going to burn out if you don't take a step back and think about what can I do to make sure that this foundation is as strong as it needs to be.
And I think that makes you a better leader too when you have those habits. And anything can be done at any point. You can pack your lunch on Sunday and meal prep for the week and eat healthy food instead of swinging through McDonald's, right? Like
Totally.
you can do that. And you can, you know, I, I know when I ran my company, I would take a lot of conference calls on walks where I would just put in an earbud and do my call and walk around my building because I just needed to
Totally.
exercise and get outside, and
Totally.
but
I put my workouts in my calendar. Like
yeah,
the like Friday mornings, I like to go swim at my club at 6:30 in the morning. So I literally block out 6:30 to 9 because by the time I swim and get back, and so work starts at 8. So one day a week, I take 1 hour where I'm like, nope, I'm swimming. And
yep,
it's in there. Tuesday nights, we do like a open water swim, workout. I rarely miss it. It's in the calendar. Oh, it's
right,
not my work, it's not in my personal calendar. It is literally in my work calendar. So everybody knows where I'm going and what I'm doing. And you're right. As a leader, you have to do that because if some, 27-year-old comes in the door and they're so frightened about like, I don't want to look like I'm slacking, but they see the CEO taking time with his kids and me and the president, like that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, why are we working? I mean, I know people
right.
get satisfaction from it, but at the end of the day, for me, I am working because I'm trying to put together a life that I'm proud of and I'm happy, for me, my husband, for my kids, my more extended family, like, and so that's what's important. That's what's the most important.
And I also, the city career and that career that you had, there was just no light at the end of the tunnel. It was just, this is it, right? Like, this is it. This is the 15-hour workday that I'm gonna have to put in every day for the rest of
Yeah,
my life, which is
that's
very
right.
different from working in an entrepreneurial environment where like, hey, you can invest 5 or 10 years really grinding to set yourself up for a lot of freedom, right? For
100%.
putting
I mean,
people in charge of other things.
look at okay, so Aaron, where I work now, we're a shared family office and we work with ultra high net worth families. So I know I'm not talking, some of the people listening to this are not necessarily in that crowd, but yet, okay? Because when I look at the complexion of our client base, yes, we have inheritance and yes, we have divorcee situations. But I would tell you the vast preponderance of our client base are men and women who built businesses and they sold them. And that is the genesis of their wealth. It's the small business owner. Like I tell my kids, I'm like, listen, you want to be really wealthy? Because of course my kids want cars or they want all the good stuff. I'm like, okay, okay, you want all that? You got to get a big job making a lot of money. But I can tell you right now, go to work for the man is not the way you're going to make, come up with a $25 million net worth, okay, or whatever it is you dream about. It is much more about the entrepreneur, the person that's creating, the person that is really building something. Those are the people that, if you want to talk about incredible success, I mean, those are the people that we work with. And so I think it's important, to remember that is really about the creation of
Remember
that.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question is
Yeah.
book or resource recommendations. So what are some things that you could recommend for people to do and
Okay.
read? Like any either movie or book or podcast or
Will you be in an app?
something.
Can it be an app?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, as much as I wanna sit here and recommend, like, all sorts of, like, financial education apps, I feel like there's so many, okay? Because this conversation has been a lot about, like, the personal, like, underneath, the foundational personal issues, and then how you can build on top of that, whether it's family or it's business or it's whatever, and, dealing with all this stuff and the fire in particular, I mean, that took my, my anxiety, your stress level or whatever to a different level. Okay. And I struggled initially with that in terms of getting to sleep, staying asleep, like having these terrible thoughts about the fire or what could have been go through my mind. And so I really needed to find a way to control those thoughts. And so I had never been a meditator. I didn't really understand what it was about. And I have a functional medicine doctor who helped me lose the weight, who's been helping me through the last, several years with aging issues. And she oh wait, what was that? What was I talking about?
The app. What's the app that
So she started to encourage me to focus more on meditation. I like a lot of frenetic working out, like running, biking, dancing, but she's like, I want you to do more yoga. I want you to chill out. Okay. So we started doing meditation and, one thing led to another. And I started using the Calm app, CALM. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's tons of meditations on there. There's tons of stuff on there. But the thing for me that has helped me the most since the fire, and if you have racing thoughts, if you're the kind of person who just cannot turn off your brain, you wake like I can get to bed, but then sometimes I wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm like, whoa, what are the things going on? Right. So there is this thing on Calm, and you could probably find it other places, but it's called EMDR, bilateral stimulation. And it is this treatment, if you will, where you have to listen with headphones or earbuds. It is soundscapes that is meant to be meditated to help you put you to sleep or help you with racing thoughts. But the sound goes back and forth between each ear. So when you're laying there, you can kind of feel it going back and forth, and it's almost like sort of a massage for your brain, if you will. I don't know exactly what this does. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a, I'm not a brain scientist, but I've read enough about it to understand like what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to stop rumination, which is essentially what we've been talking about. And I got to tell you, I do this every single night. I do it every single night. Some nights I fall asleep to it. Some nights I don't. Like last night, I listened to it for 20 minutes, took it off, rolled over and went to bed. So I would say if you're the kind of person, you're building a business, you're under a lot of stress, you may not be taking as good a care of yourself as you should, or maybe you do and you're looking for like that extra little thing that can help you,
Mhm.
try this EMDR bilateral stimulation because I really, really think it's something that can help you. And even though I'm not talking about something directly to help your business, sell more widgets, sell more consulting services, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself and your IP and your prowess, and you want to be your very best if you're going to be doing that. Even if you're own a widget company and you're building widgets, you're still managing a group of people. You're still, driving a brand or
Yeah.
a product, if you will. So for me, that has been enormously helpful.
I love that because it's a very unique suggestion. I haven't ever had somebody suggest like an app or an audio, and I think that that is because I remember in the thick of running a business not being able to sleep because you're like, "Oh my gosh, this person texts me at 9 p.m. I need to talk to you in the morning." And you're like, "Wait, what do they need to talk to me about?" You're playing through a conversation in your head all night trying to figure it out and how it's going to go and replaying and replaying. If I had something that could calm my brain down,
Yeah.
that would have helped me tremendously because it's just your thoughts are always just racing. What
100%.
needs to be done? What hasn't gotten done? Who needs what? Somebody's sick, somebody's this, somebody's that, right? And you're just always on
Always on like
level 10.
like,
Yeah.
I found one thing I found was interesting is I have had stress for 32 years. Like my job has been stressful from day one.
Yeah.
And I'm not a trained medical professional, but there's definitely a difference between the stress I felt in like my 20s and 30s and even into my early 40s and the anxiety I would feel in the last like 7, 8 years. So I know it's concurrent with menopause, which, we could go off on another tangent on that, but it's also concurrent with all these things I've been going through and leaving a career that I knew for 26 years. And, kids just, that's just stressful no matter what. And so understanding the difference between those two and anxiety being this chronic, all the time stress and like the rumination and the things you can't get out of your head, that's been a real, game changer in a negative way for me of the last years. But then working really hard to find things that help calm me down and get that out of my head it's been so important. It's been really, really more so than, like, any books I could recommend or things that have, like really at the end of the day, it comes down to, like, how am I feeling? And if I'm feeling good and I feel confident, then I know the outcomes I can produce are gonna be so much different than if not.
Yes. Okay, and I just thought of one more question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
So you worked on Wall Street and you were in this high pressure, high intensity situation. For women specifically, if they're surrounded by male coaching, which can be very intense, right?
Yes.
And a lot of shouting and a lot of intense coaching. What advice would you have for, females in business that are coached by men that are just like very intense? Their intentions are good, but sometimes the delivery is pretty rough. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you handle that when you were just surrounded by these high testosterone, intense men in this environment?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
did you do to, to be able to handle that?
honestly, going back to, like, my upbringing, like, when you work in a restaurant, I mean, and you got crazy this is a 24-hour family restaurant, like, talk about, like,
Man.
even more crazy than normal. I mean, I guess I was used to just operating in chaos. I was definitely used to getting sworn at, so, like, that wasn't a big one. Getting yelled at, I mean, I played sports growing up as a kid. I mean, how many coaches my high school volleyball coach would scream at me all day long every practice. I mean, but we are awesome, you know? So, I guess I got there, and it was kinda like I was intoxicated. You walk on the Solomon Brothers trading floor in 1994. I mean, just awesome. But, just you could smell the testosterone. It was just a total and you're right. I mean, it was way more men than women. There was very few women there, and the women that were there were tough as nails
Yeah.
because they had to be. So, early on, when I first got to Wall Street, I was an investment banking analyst, which, oh god, I mean, did that for 2 years, and then I'm like, "I'm done. I can't work for, 100 hours a week," but I had to work with the traders and the salespeople, and those traders are some of the meanest people I ever met in my life. But for whatever reason, they liked me because, like, I didn't get offended by it. I let it roll off my back, or I gave it back to them. So, I guess I feel like from the get-go, like, I've always been true to myself and letting my personality show through and, using humor as a diffusing device. I'm also not afraid. Like, after everything I've been through, I mean, there's no one that intimidates me because I've had to walk up to the CEO of the big IPO we're doing and have to introduce myself and like you're just so used to being put on the spot all the time. So I don't know, I feel like I lost
So
the
you're
train.
conditioned, like, you were conditioned to handle it.
I was conditioned to handle it.
Somebody who's, like, ultra sensitive, who wasn't conditioned to handle it, like, I hear it with a
And listen, I work with a lot of women who
Yeah.
would get offended by it. They didn't like to get screamed at or didn't think it was funny or didn't were afraid to, like, give it back. I was never afraid to give it back. So, like, I have a huge potty mouth and, like, I won't drop any F-bombs on this podcast. Like, I got no problem with that. I guess I always even if I didn't feel super confident my whole career, like, in the early days, you
Yeah.
guess there was a lot of, like, kind of fake it till you make it. You know, I would always be sure what I was saying was right. So, instead of just, like,
Fact-based, yeah.
just, like, throwing stuff off the top of my head, which some people would do because they'd rather come up with an answer than, "Oh, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you." I'd rather, do the latter, or do the yeah, latter than the former. Um, but I will say it's a tough environment. It's not for everybody. I think it got better over the years because there was, certainly a recognition that there is more diversity. There needs to be more diversity. Some of the ways that people were treated in the back in the day, that stuff's not okay anymore. And so I guess what I always did is I could handle it. Maybe it was nature, maybe it was just my personality, my potty mouth, whatever, but I could always handle it. And then when I saw those women that couldn't, I always put myself out there as somebody who was like, I have an open door policy. Come and talk to me. Like I have mentored formally and informally, I don't know, hundreds of people over my career, especially women, and have them come in and complain about what happened. And then if I can go in, like I remember one story, it's one woman came out and told her boss on the floor that she was pregnant. And instead of him reacting in the way that you would hope, he was like, "Oh god, that's terrible, and when are you gonna be out? When are you gonna be back?" Like, that's not a right? So she came in and she told me that she was upset by it. I went to him and I'm like, "Listen, you can't act like that," and I kinda ate to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're right," and he apologized to her and then it was fine, but I don't know, I guess I was always more willing to speak my mind, put up boundaries, and go tell people to, whatever off, than just be a shrieking violet. I was never gonna let that happen, but it's not for the faint of heart, I'm not gonna lie. I mean,
It's a
it's a tough wow, but it does make every other like, the work environment now, I feel like, is so much more collegial and collaborative and, less sharp elbows and, that kinda stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having the facts is so huge, and just being not afraid to speak your mind and say, "Hey, that wasn't okay. Like, I don't appreciate that. This is a better way to coach me," or whatever, and just speaking up for something that bothers you and saying, "Hey, that's not okay. I don't like that."
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
just not shrinking down, but instead standing in your own power and standing up for yourself.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, just cowering and just accepting it and moving on is only gonna last for so long.
Right.
And then eventually you're gonna get to the point where, I mean, if you finding yourself waking up and hating the idea of going to your job or, just it physically makes you sick to think about going into the office, like, that's not a sustainable life for you, then that's a sign that you need to really dig deep and figure out maybe there's another path because at the end of the day, you deserve to be happy. Like, I don't know if you need someone to tell you that, like, give you permission, but, like, you do deserve to be happy. And it's up to you to figure out what that means. There's some people that wanna work 100 hours a week and make $5,000,000 a year and never see their kids, but you know what? That makes them happy. That's ridiculous. I don't want that. I don't want that,
Right.
but it makes them happy. So, that's the key is to figure out what that is.
That's so true, and not no 2 paths are alike, and I think that's the definition of success for one person can be totally different than the definition of success for another person, and they're both beautiful, and you're right, some people just wanna work until their eyes bleed, and that makes them happy and fulfilled, and that's amazing for them, and some people don't, and I was always the one build the life that you wanna live, right? Like, but, so the time that you could spend with your kids and your family and the
That's right.
time freedom was me. Like, I was like, "I need the freedom of time. I don't want anyone telling me what I can do, where I can go." I've known since kindergarten that people can't tell me what to do. The teacher was
Yeah.
like, "Sit in a circle," and I was like, "I would rather not. Thank you very
Yeah.
much." You know?
Wait,
But no, thank you.
but best.
Yeah, my mom's like, "It has to be her idea." She had, like, a critical convo with, like, every teacher I ever had. They're like, "Don't tell her
Yeah.
what to do. Just make it her idea. It's gotta be her." So, like, I've known that was I was like, "I'm willing to work for a period of time, but not forever." Like, 10 years, I can invest 100 hours a week, and then after that, no.
Yep.
Like, I've gotta build myself out of this. Uh,
That's right.
but, I think that that's so true. Some people just wanna work 100 hours for 40 years, and that's amazing and good. You
Yep.
make 25, 50, $100,000,000, unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable, but not I mean, that's the other thing about wealth is, like, there's this idea well, I guess I felt more like this in my old job where the wealth is a barometer of your self-worth, and it's really not. I mean, that is not it is a tool. It is a tool for you to live a meaningful life. So figure out what that life looks like and then use that tool to reach that reality. But the idea that you can sit there and just look at your bank account or your investment account total and think, "Oh, I have this amount of money, that means I'm better than everyone else." Like, that's just not true. And
No, but,
so
like, no one else cares. That's the thing, like, you know what I mean?
no one does care because somebody could literally have very little money and they live a certain way and they're the happiest people around. I mean, and you do find a lot of times like the wealthier people get, the more complex it gets, the more issues crop up. And frankly, there's a lot of unhappy wealthy people out there because
Yes.
they've gotten there. They reached the pinnacle and they thought when they got there everything would be different and change and they'd be a better person. They would all of a sudden be happy and they realize that's
That's
really not that's not what's happening. That's not it.
no. And I think that's a really, really huge key point in you're digging deep on a life point here, which is, the value of wealth in your life is not money. Like money is a tool. Money is something that can get you to a place where you have some freedom and you have choices and you have all these things that can be utilized in that way. But I'm sure there's a tipping point of okay, at this level, there's no more happiness. I think it was, I don't know what, Gary Vee or somebody did the study on that where it was something like 200 grand. Or it's like after you hit that level, it's like you're not really gaining any more happiness or freedom from the money. It's just kind of stockpiling. And if you have to sacrifice your entire personal life,
Totally.
you don't have any kids anymore, any spouse or anything, you're just alone with this pile of cash.
Like, what is it? What does that do for you?
Yeah,
What
what
is
is
that? I mean,
yes.
if that's your, so then what? You're gonna give it all away, or like, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to judge somebody else's situation, but I do feel like, you got to dig deep. You got to get a little, you know, you got to get vulnerable and really realize like what you think it is that could bring that happiness. And if it's got to be 10 million bucks, then okay, then go for it. 20 million, whatever the number is. But if it's far less than that and you can do either of those and still live a life where you have control and you have the ability to, you know, be around
For
people
people
you
you
love and do
love.
that you
Yeah.
like, then that is like that's the secret. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, like,
That
and we do this exercise where, like, what is your walk away money? Like, what is the amount you wanna have to walk away from every career? Like, what is that number? Is it $5 million? Is it 10? Is it 50? Because everybody's number is different, and everybody's needs are different. Some people like really fancy stuff, some people don't care as much. It's just, and I think that's what people have to decide, like, what is your walk away money? Let's work
yeah,
backwards from that to figure out how you need to achieve that, and then be willing to walk away when you hit it.
exactly. Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. Jen, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on here and sharing all your wisdom and stories and your lessons of resilience and all the
Yes.
things with us. I think it's been an amazing hour with you. And I hope people get a ton out of this. I know they will. And if they want to reach you somehow, how would they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. So, Jennifer Barry on LinkedIn. That's my only sort of work. I have Facebook and Instagram, but only for personal.
Yeah.
Our website, aaronwealth.com,
Perfect.
AARON.com. They can see on our team and you can contact us through there as well.
Great. We might have some over 25 millionaires watching this. So that's
Let's go. I mean,
yeah.
I would be happy to have conversations with people. So
That's great. I'll put that link in the description. So if anybody watching this is in that range, please click on that, especially if you're in the Chicago area,
yeah,
go
yeah.
and have a chat.
And we have, I mean, I will tell you, we have our office in Chicago, but we have an office in Newport Beach and an office in Carmel, Indiana.
Oh, perfect.
So we have clients all across the country. So it very much is a
Yeah.
national practice. So I'll just say that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so
Yep.
I you where you are. That's awesome.
I know where you are.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Jen. I
Well,
really appreciate
thank you so much. I'm really honored to be your guest, and this was such a great conversation. So I really thank you.
Likewise.
All right. Thank you. Talk soon.
Bye. Every week on the Growth and Grit podcast, we bring you real stories and practical tools to help you thrive through challenges. If this resonates with you, make sure you subscribe, follow, and share this podcast with someone who could use it too. It only takes a second, but it would mean the world to us, and it keeps you plugged in to fresh inspiration.